The on-air clash between actress Cheryl Hines and the co-hosts of The View became a pivotal moment in the public scrutiny surrounding her husband, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., especially following his controversial appointment as the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services, HHS, under the Trump administration. The tense exchange, centered on his qualifications and his dissemination of health-related theories, highlighted the personal cost of Kennedy's political trajectory on his spouse. The initial confrontation, political trajectory and qualifications. Hines, who was on the show to promote her new book, Unscripted, initially tried to keep the conversation light, joking that Kennedy was completely different from anyone I had ever met in my life. However, co-host Joy Behar immediately set the tone with a dry quip, "That's for sure." The discussion quickly moved to Kennedy's shift from a lifelong Democrat to an independent candidate, and finally, to a cabinet member under a Republican president. Hines addressed the political evolution, acknowledging that the transition was a leap and a big change, particularly over the short span of a year and a half. The core of the conflict emerged when the hosts challenged Kennedy's suitability for the top public health position. Co-host Sunny Hostin was the most aggressive in her questioning, asserting that Kennedy was the least qualified Department of Health and Human Services head that we've had in history. Hines immediately pushed back on the accusation of being unqualified. Hines's defense: she questioned the host's criteria, arguing that historical precedent did not require a medical degree for the post. 90% of secretaries of the HHS have not been doctors, she claimed, without citing the source of her statistic. She then used a past administration to deflect the criticism. One of President Obama's secretaries of HHS was an economist. How is he less qualified than an economist? She touted her husband's long-standing record as an environmental lawyer, arguing his career demonstrated a dedication to public well-being and governmental reform. The escalation, misinformation, and the demand for respect. The tension ratcheted up when Hostin moved from Qualifications to Kennedy's Views, stating he has also spread a lot of misinformation, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, and I think it's just a very dangerous thing. Hines attempted to counter this by turning the misinformation charge back onto the public health establishment, referencing earlier advice given during the COVID-19 pandemic. She suggested that experts, like Dr. Anthony Fauci, had initially offered disinformation by incorrectly stating that the COVID vaccine would prevent transmission. It was during this attempted response that Hostin sharply interjected with one of Kennedy's most controversial claims: he's connecting circumcisions to autism. It was at this point that Hines's frustration boiled over, leading to the highly publicized moment where she firmly responded, May I finish?" Moderator Whoopi Goldberg could be heard urging Hostin to please allow the guest to complete her thought, a clear signal that the interaction had crossed a line in on-air debate etiquette. Defending the controversial stance. Despite the tense atmosphere, Hines reiterated her defense of her husband's perspective, often echoing his own critical views of the medical establishment. On vaccines, Hines spoke to the need to do better on safety, stating, "Can we listen to parents who say my child got the vaccine and changed and stopped hitting markers, stopped developing the way they were developing? Can we listen to people when they say that?" On her roll, the hosts, including Goldberg, noted that Hines was being put in an unfair position, stating that this is not your fight, really, to be fighting, and that Kennedy should come on the show himself. Hines revealed that her husband had, in fact, been invited, but she had advised him to decline, saying, "I told him maybe don't come." The interview concluded on a lighter, yet still political note. Co-host Joy Behar asked about the famous rumor regarding Kennedy's health. Does he or does he not have a brainworm? Hines, with a practiced smile, gave the well-known defense: "It ate just a little bit of his brain and died, so don't worry." The exchange ultimately underscored the reality of Hines's life as a political spouse, a seemingly reluctant proxy forced to defend a high-profile, deeply controversial figure against pointed, rapid-fire criticism from seasoned political commentators. The intensity of the debate left no ambiguity about the deep political and ideological chasms that now define her public life.